And welcome to another High Vibe channeling session for Sunday, June 28th, 2026. And we welcome back Serge Grandbois, and he will be bringing forth his higher self, alter ego, best pal, Kris, Kris. And Kris and Serge both like to address the concepts of mindfulness, conscious creation, and the law of attraction by offering new paths to empowerment, well being, and greater understanding of the universe. And you can touch base with him on channelingkris.com and check out his website, which has plenty of classes and some of his writing and little transcripts from previous sessions and lots of satisfied customers. And if I left something out, the pressure's on Serge to fill in the gaps. So thank you very
Oh, the
much
pressure.
and welcome, Serge.
Thank you. Um, yeah, it's been an incredible journey. And sometimes I think back as when I started this and find it amazing that, and it's sometimes it's hard to express or the words are not there to tap into the depth of it, but it's been a very life-changing experience for myself and as well as many other people who communicate with Kris. And I wouldn't have it any other way. That's just a short and sweet of it.
Well,
And there's a tremendous appreciation because Kris is not a Butinsky. I don't ever hear, I told you so, because we're not married. And
you're living in spirit.
yeah. But it's been an incredible journey and it's allowed me to see the world in a completely different way. And so I'm just kind of getting the buzz that uh, he wants to butt in, even though he's not a Butinsky. So I'll just let him go ahead.
And thank you. And we're grateful.
Now we trust that you are all comfortable.
Very, thank you.
And we thank you for your consideration. One perhaps very, very important mm, part of any such presentation, doesn't matter from whom, is to understand that reality creation may actually be a little different than the average individual assumes. One important factor is that your imagination, and we may have spoken on this before, here and other places, the use of your imagination is literally primordial. You may not notice after some time, because often it is relegated to the backseat of awareness. But the use of imagination is basically mandatory for participating on this plane of existence. And the more you recognize and use that potential, the more it works to your advantage. And especially in terms of conscious creation. There are many who are convinced that all they have to do is imagine something and it will literally appear before your eyes. And our question is, it's a very fine thing to intend that. That may be the intention. But what is far more important is attention. paying attention to your interactions with reality, to your relationships with your belief systems and your reality. Because reality is not transactional. It does not work on the premise that all you have to do is a few little mantras, a few little affirmations, some meditation, and somehow the universe is mandated or bound to bring this into your lap. If you look at your own human history, all civilizations, all cultures were formed by the humans participating in collective congressional efforts to build upon certain ideas, not just to sit there and imagine Rome being built. The Romans built it with their hands. They built it first in their imagination. And the process is still not finished, but it is being built with attention. Every culture and every civilization is the result of using the imagination in conjunction with effort, with work in many different ways. And we want to emphasize this simply because very often people feel as if something doesn't manifest out of nothing. They are doing something wrong. And there is hardly ever any, not necessarily correction, but addressing of that particular issue. And there is nothing wrong with you. There is nothing wrong with anyone. The approach itself is only half formed. You do have to begin in your inner workshop, so to speak. But you also have to carry it out into physicality. That is why you have chosen to participate in this particular plane of physicality, is to bring about your ideas and that energy into three-dimensional experience. But part of the struggle, too, is that some seem to have come to the conclusion that physicality, the physical three-dimensional experience, is actually an impediment, and that you must reach for something higher. And when that begins to take form, you actually impede your own efforts for happiness. So we just wanted to share that and sow those seeds so that you can understand that you have all the powers of imagination available to you, but it must be put into practice. It must be put into the physical aspect. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, thank you, Kris.
For instance, Ray, you bought a house some time back. You may have dreamt of the house. You may have imagined what it would look like, what it would feel like, but it did not magically just appear out of nothing. Does that make sense too?
It does. But in my case, I just had the parameters, and then I knew I was going to get a house that was within those parameters.
Yes. You set everything into motion and then you did your very level best to bring it about.
I
You
celebrated.
signed the contracts and all of these things that are part and parcel of your physical experience. And it brought you a high level of fulfillment. It gave you that sense of not necessarily ownership, but accomplishment. letting you actually understand at the very physical level that you can make things happen. But of course, they do not magically appear. You put in the necessary groundwork and the efforts. Again, if you want to eat dinner, you can meditate on dinner all you want. But the only way you're going to get dinner, either order out, go out, or cook it yourself. Other than that, you're going to be very hungry in a few hours.
I
Does
love
that
that
make sense as
example.
well?
Yes, thank you.
Indeed.
But you did leave out the part about my house about what the hell am I getting into? But that's another story.
Hmm. That is on to you.
Yes, indeed, literally and metaphorically.
Everything in your own physical reality, and this addresses everyone, always has particular challenges, because that is also part of the premise of this plane of existence. The challenges are not there to shove a stick in your wheel, so to speak, but to help you recognize what limitations you have functioned under and that you still accept. And when you recognize them and make the necessary steps to resolve the issues, things flow. Let us tell you a little story, if you like. It is a little story about the Buddha, a Buddha that, of course, mm, didn't actually happen, but we just use the word or the name. But one day, the Buddha was taking a walk by a nice little river in the forest. And when the river noticed who was walking on her banks, she expressed herself and she said, "Oh, Master, can you tell me what happiness is?" And the Buddha instead asked a question. He said, "Oh, daughter river, what have you done?" So the river mentioned that at some point she wanted peace and happiness, but she was getting frustrated with the eddies and the currents and the waves. And she decided to dam up her own flow. And the Buddha said, "And did you achieve your peace and happiness?" And she said, "Well, no. Instead, my waters became stagnant. They did not flow. The fish died. The reeds on the banks are dying. There's nothing but degradation now." And the Buddha said, "Then what do you want to do about that?" So the river thought for a few moments and said, "I had assumed that I could only be happy and at peace if I became something else than a river, and it is not working." So she decided to remove the dam, and the waters flowed once again. And the Buddha said, "Yes, and what is the nature of a river?" And the river said, "Ah, the nature of the river, my nature is to flow. Now I am happy." And the Buddha blessed the river and continued walking. The simple moral of the story is to not try and be something you are not, to love and deal with what you are. And then you will notice it is much easier to be happy being yourself than to be something in someone else. Does that also make sense to you?
Yes, a nice parable. Thank you, Kris.
Indeed. Now we believe that there might be some inquiries,
You are so smart. Linda, please.
and sometimes you are cheeky.
All the time, I think. We appreciate that.
Well, Kris, thank you for your parables. They were really interesting. And Feng Shui, which I'm a follower of, is a devotee of taking something from the unseen thought and putting a physical action behind it. And I thought that resonated. But anyway, sorry, that was aside. I'm asking you a question about money, which seems inappropriate in a way. But I saved out $1,000 for my daughter whose house was condemned. I wanted to help her. I couldn't do it physically. So I had a cash and carrying it around, I lost it. So I gave her another thousand I came up with. I've never found the original $1,000. And I just wondered, is it in my home somewhere? I haven't gotten too whacked out about it. But, it would be great to recover it. And I just wonder if you could give me any insight. It also feels like there's some lesson attached to that, as there often is. But,
There usually is, and the lesson is something that you are wanting to teach yourself. The universe has nothing to do with these things.
uh-huh.
In some ways, you are the universe.
Mhm.
Y-O-U verse. Hmm.
Okay.
Now, what kind of structures and patterns do you hold in reference to spiritual mindsets and money?
Um,
Because
I've,
you said a few moments ago it might not be appropriate.
yeah, it might not be. And if it isn't, fine. I feel like money is the easiest dilemma for us to solve spiritually because it's just a matter of values. And I've always gotten what I needed to get by. So when I lost some money, I was like, well, I was faced with the uh, prospect of disappointing her and not keeping my commitment or digging deep and rather uncomfortably. And I chose to go ahead and give it to her because I had said I would and I wanted to be of help. On the other hand, I feel this is totally gut feeling, but I feel it's waiting around here somewhere because the need will be great this summer. And I have a feeling it may show up when I actually really am in need, but I don't
Hmm.
know. I don't know.
In this particular plane of existence,
Hmm.
even though some people think money might possibly be the root of all evil, it isn't
Hmm.
necessarily money. It is the mindset that
Yeah.
uses money. So, in your plane of existence, it is created by humans, of course, but it is structured in such a way that you use it for transactions.
Hmm.
Now, somehow or other, it seemed to have gotten lost. When you think about this, what other things do you think might be lost within yourself?
I think a sense of trust that everything is going to be okay. It always has been. And struggling with it or getting too concerned about it doesn't seem like really good thing to me.
That is correct, because if you are struggling with the idea that somehow or other it is
Hmm.
lost, you keep that particular pattern alive. So
Yeah.
your mind may not be able to bring it back to you, if you like, in very basic terms. So one of the best approaches is perhaps once a day, tell yourself, right now, I may not be able to locate it, but somehow or other, my subconscious mind knows where it might have ended up. It might even be able, and again, we're not advocating something appearing out of nowhere, but it may suddenly show up where you might least expect it.
Mm-hmm.
and give that sense of trust to the universe.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And whenever your mind starts fretting about it, we understand that very often you and others might say, I'm not really that worried about it, whilst you're worried about it. You're trying to minimize the worry by convincing yourself you're not really worried about it. But in this particular day and age, $1,000 is considerable. So allow yourself to help you find it. That it may, let's see, you may look somewhere you might have looked 1,000 places before,
Mm-hmm.
and there it is. Perhaps not unlike, have you ever done this? Put your glasses on top of your head and then wonder where the heck your glasses are.
Oh, yes. Oh,
Hmm.
yes.
That is common with people who wear glasses.
Yeah.
So allow yourself the benefit of the doubt in that area
Mm-hmm.
and hmm, know that you already know where it is. You just have to find it. It will come in its
Yes.
own time. Hmm.
That's
And
kind of
again,
been my sense of it.
we're not advocating some blind faith, but just a certain kind of dynamics of the physics of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Once you see it, you might see, oh, why didn't I see it there before? I looked there 1,000 times. But your mind may not be able to pick it up because it is blocked.
Gotcha. I think that's right.
Mhm.
I've been kind of thinking along those lines. It's like I'm not ready or something is keeping me from it. And it does feel like a lesson in trust. It does.
Give it a little time. And
Mhm.
in the meantime, have fun with reality. Reality is meant to help you exercise your creative faculties. Now, on the one hand, you might think, well, that's the wrong kind of exercise in that respect for me to lose money. But at the same time, it might have some deep implications for you.
Mhm.
And you
Yeah.
can also utilize autosuggestion, but not every minute on the hour. Just once or twice a day, suggest to yourself, you will see it, you will find it.
Okay. That's helpful. Thank you. Yeah.
Oh. Now, on the other hand, as well, what do you remember about the last time you saw it?
Um, I am terribly careless with money, so I stuck it in my jeans pocket to take to her. And I think it felt that I think what happened was it fell out in the floor, and I'm like, oh, it's not safe. Put it there. I'll put it somewhere where it'll be safe. So I hid it, and I have no idea what I do with it.
That is a very common human experience. I will put it somewhere safe, and then you forget where you put it.
It's safe
There
for
is a
me.
there's a kind of paradox,
Hmm.
but allow it to show up again.
Hmm. Okay. Thank you.
You're most welcome.
And we all appreciate that one, Kris. Thank you very much. I have a question which came up to me today, and I've had this situation come up repeatedly with those who have a certain religion or they follow certain channelers like Seth, and they close off their mind to anything that may be outside that belief box, is what I call it.
It's a very common experience as well.
Yes. Do
This
you
was continue.
do you have a message that that I might be able to share with them to
Hmm.
maybe shake that loose or help them understand that they are limiting their explorations in one or more ways because they're locked into a certain reality? Not that that's not their
Hmm.
choice, but I'm just curious about that. If you could
Hmm.
elaborate, please.
So many people, and let us use Uncle Seth for example, have gravitated to the exploration that he brought forth, the potentials and possibilities that he offered. And many quote unquote followers have formed their sense of identity along those particular patterns. And when something challenges it, they may close the doors. So, to some degree, there is a certain amount of closed mindedness because stepping outside those parameters might present a threat not to Seth, not to their understanding, but to their perception of themselves. Does that make sense to you?
Absolutely. We see it all the time in the political arena with the MAGA cults and things
Yes.
like that today.
Now, not to say that there is a Seth cult, but at the same time, there can be that kind of mentality, something that Rupert would blanch at.
That I agree with.
So some people eventually will be comfortable in broadening their horizons, but at the moment, their sense of identity, what they identify with, is apparently quite solid. They have a certain sense of security. To step outside those borders might represent some form of insecurity. And unfortunately, the human mind, in its literal, logical recognition, finds security in conclusions. So their particular perception is often that they have concluded that Uncle Seth's material is the epitome of understanding reality. And nobody can bring anything else forward, which is in a way an unfortunate perception, because the field of perception, and this is something Uncle Seth stressed beyond repetition, is that the field of perception cannot be contained by any linear perceptions, by any logical, rational, intellectual perceptions. In fact, it goes beyond that. That, for the time being, is what they are comfortable with, and they don't want to be challenged in that area. So they will just shut you down.
And and that's fine. I mean, I'm not about to try to change their views, but
Indeed.
if I bring awareness to them, they can either accept it or they can just ignore it. And
Indeed.
whatever they
And
choose is
again,
fine.
it isn't anybody's fault per se. It isn't a lack of understanding on their part. It is where they are at.
That I understand. And when I actually channeled for the Seth conference earlier this month, and the entity which came through told them, do not be a Seth speak thumper like the Bible thumpers. And to and reminded them that when they read passages 10 years ago and they reread them now, they have completely different beliefs about those. So they would not speak badly about their previous interpretation of them. They just have a different one now, and to accept everyone's views on it because they're not going to stay there anyway.
Correct. The main point is that you evolve, you grow, you change, your identity changes, but when you lock it in, it becomes a problem. You basically, like the river, decide you're only going to be happy and fulfilled if you stop flowing. We didn't bring that up for no reason at all.
Well, I'm glad that you did. And even if my post gets deleted, I'm still going to put it out there that that's what you said. So thank you very much. Grateful for that, as always, Kris. Christina Anna, please.
Mm. Hello, it's
Indeed.
lovely to have you and Serge with us. You mentioned Buddha, and it's funny, I never imagined I would own any like um, item that resembles him, but I was at the flea market yesterday, and there he was. And I was actually there reading a book about mushrooms, and he was there, and I thought, oh, I cannot leave him there. so, so I brought him home, and I gave him a good clean, and I welcomed him, and I put him next to my quartz rose crystal, and he looked so happy. And it's such a beautiful, beautiful item. There's a lot of very detailed, a great craftsmanship. Anyway, yes, it is beautifully done, and I from him I get this energy like from the hybrid children that it's joy and play. But I also wanted to hear your take on the this new energetic presence in my home.
Hmm. So let us look at it with you slightly differently. On the one hand, unlike others, there is actually historical evidence of Siddhartha and his choices of leaving behind royalty and literally studying himself and his consciousness. You could say he incorporated in his presence a powerful archetype. So the Buddha, quote unquote, is actually an archetype and encapsulation or embodiment of great wisdom. And you brought this into your home. You somehow or other felt pulled at the flea market.
Yes.
So that is not necessarily the statue, but your own internal evolution, your own inner self identified with a part of the energy that is recognized worldwide as the Buddha and the archetype. So you decided to help focus this into your home. Your home is your psyche. It isn't just four walls and so on. It is your psyche. So in your psyche, there is a recognition of a deep well of wisdom. So you can read the Buddha, and interestingly enough, the Buddha and Buddhism is not a religion, unlike many others.
Mm.
This particular kind of energy is drawing you to focus on deeper aspects of reality, especially relationships with reality. The point of so-called evolution is not to get rid of reality, even though some people might proclaim that you must ascend the reality because reality is three-dimensional and you are something different and you must eschew it, you must dump it. The main point is that within every aspect of a reality, every stitch and fiber and fabric of reality that make up your daily actions, there is a deep well of wisdom. And that also means that in you, in your mind, even in your physical form, there is wisdom, much more than you might suspect.
Mm.
And the idea is that just to fold yourself, just like you're folding sheets, but you're folding yourself in wisdom. And perhaps even meditate on that concept that the Buddha in your psyche represents that well of wisdom. So you can meditate upon it. You can think about it very nicely, not obsessively, but just so that you begin to see reality in a different light. You begin to see that reality is full of relationships and not necessarily transactions. That every part of you exists because of relationships. You have a relationship with the air, with your house, with water, with the earth, with the trees, with other human beings. Everything around you speaks and literally screams of relationships. The more you immerse yourself in that flow, the more your own nature comes out. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, I fully agree. It is always about relationships and co-creation, no?
Even taking a walk in the night and seeing the stars and the moon, that instantly triggers a relational component. You have a relationship with the stars and the moon, the clouds. It may not present itself in the way you are accustomed to, but it still presents itself.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much.
Indeed, we trust it is of assistance.
It is a lot to think about, and it's very exciting. Thank you very much.
What we usually present when we not necessarily provide answers, if you notice, but provide the means to keep opening doors of perception,
Yes,
things that trigger more understanding. But that is on you.
indeed.
Anita?
Thank you very much, Kris, for speaking with us this evening. My question is, and I apologize if you have already answered it because I came 10 minutes late to the meeting. So, but my question is, I know a few people that are hurting financially, that do not have a job, but instead of looking for a job, they feel they will be taken care of by the universe, and all they need to do is meditate on wealth, on being taken care of, and they feel if they actually go looking for a job, it represents that they don't believe that the universe will take care of them. How would I help someone in that aspect?
Sometimes it is more difficult than you might assume. For instance, a basic, not necessarily a rule, but a strong guideline is to understand that you cannot have any control over what other people say, do, and think. But you have full control over what you say, do, and think. It's very different universes. Now, we briefly addressed this at the beginning, perhaps before you showed up, but the main point is, as we suggested with Ray, or anyone, if you are hungry and you decide to sit and meditate, you're going to meditate on dinner. You're going to meditate on what kind of dinner you're going to make. And then you somehow or other insist that I don't have to do anything. It will just appear.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You might be hungry for a very, very long time. You have a
Yes.
physical form, you have energy, you know how to move all of this energy in a way that you can get up into the kitchen, take out the chicken and the sauces and the onions and cook up a storm and feed your belly. Does that make sense?
It does, and that's how I view it also.
Hmm.
But I noticed some of my friends do not view it that way.
And in some respects, that's also fine. That is part of the challenge that they have. And it's very likely that at some point they will become so hungry, they will have to go into the kitchen and do something about their hunger. Hmm.
Right.
Metaphorically speaking, of course.
Yes.
And you might be surprised how many people actually think the same way.
Mhm.
And then somehow or other become very disappointed, thinking they must still be doing something wrong. They're not meditating just the right way. They are not intonating the mantra just the right way. Something is wrong.
Correct.
And there might be nothing wrong at all, except get up and do something.
Yes.
So they might somehow or other perhaps drive down the road, and there might be a big sign that says, "Help wanted." Oh, no, I can't do that. The universe will bring it to me.
Right.
And it just did. It literally just did. Mm.
Right.
So
Right.
there is some kind of irony in the
Mhm.
process, but this is something that they may have to learn on their own. In the meantime, you can send them supporting energy, not in a
Mhm.
judgmental fashion or a
Right.
worrisome fashion, but just perhaps trust that their efforts will somehow or other be rewarded, and that perhaps they will bump into someone. Perhaps they are at the supermarket or at the flea market or something, and they happen to strike up a conversation, perhaps even with a stranger. And the stranger says, "Oh, well, that's interesting because at my place of work, they are looking for someone. Why don't you come over and apply?" Perhaps that's all they need.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Indeed.
That
And you
is
can
helpful.
send them some imagery mentally, perhaps with a firecracker to get them moving as well.
Yes. I heard one person say that it is easier to steer a moving boat. If the boat is not moving, it is very hard to put it in the right direction.
Yes.
So they need to take action, something
That is
to,
why
and
you
then
have a
the
physical plane of
universe.
existence, a consensus reality, a physical body. You have a brain, you have imagination, you have a mind, you have muscles. So those are the tools. Again, our point, Romans did not just sit there in a circle, hold hands, and sing a Roman version of Kumbaya, and poof, the empire suddenly showed up. They built it from the ground up. They worked themselves to the bone. The Egyptians did the same thing. The Mesopotamians, the Akkadians, the Hittites, the Celts, the this and the that, even the Atlanteans. They knew how to work the premises of physicality. That's why you come here, because it presents a unique challenge. And that challenge is you, pardon the expression, but you get off your duff and you make it happen. That's what you're here for. Have
Right.
you ever experienced in your whole life Anywhere where you just sat around and the Visa bill was paid somehow or other, the credit card was paid, the groceries were filled up in the cupboards all by themselves. No, you went out there and you did it.
Right. Right.
That's
You
why
may
you
run into,
create. That's
yeah,
why you created physical reality. It
yes.
presents a whole different set of challenges. At another plane of existence, it may be different, but you are in this plane of existence. And you can't bring that in here
Right.
because there are certain lines that are drawn that when you incarnate in this particular plane of existence, this is the rule. These are the conditions. Then you may think, well, I'd never signed a dotted line, but you did because you came here. Does that make sense? And the point
Does.
too is have fun with the whole thing.
Right.
Enjoy the process. Yes, you might have to dirty your hands when you grow flowers, but if you just sit in front of your garden and you yell, flowers, they won't show up.
So true.
And the
But
squirrels
thank
might
you.
think, oh, somebody's a little loony.
And the neighbors too.
That
Thank you
too.
very much.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you,
Have
Kris.
fun with the process. Enjoy life. It is
Yes.
meant to be enjoyed.
Yes.
And
I
some people
agree.
wallow in self-pity as a form of joy. This is
Mhm.
not necessarily the most productive, but it is what it is.
Right. Right. Thank you.
Indeed, we trust it is of assistance. Because the main point, you see, is not your friends, is you. It may represent a certain aspect of you that you just needed tweaking a little bit, understanding, and know that this is not your preferred means of creating. You want to go out there and do it. So the onus is on you. Indeed, that.
Christina?
Thank you. Yes, hello again. And yes, some time back we had, or rather you had mentioned about the fine print. Yeah. um, yes, and we spoke also of relationships, and I was wondering. I know I have contacts with many, many different beings, but I was wondering if you could mention anything about the relationship I have with the frog people.
Any relationship that you have at that level
Hmm.
first has to be interpreted by your consciousness and your mind. So what you represent it as may not necessarily be what it is, but it is a means by which you're able to understand. So even the act of Joseph speaking for us, you understand the English words. But there's another part of you that understands the nonverbal communication of energy, but you don't. Joseph has a soupçon, a little pinch of what that entails, but it is still more than his consciousness can accommodate. So it is interpreted in a fashion that is suitable for him and for you and for everyone else. And that applies to any being that is quote unquote channeled. So you establish a certain form of relationship and you interpret it in a way that is easier for you to understand. And as you delve more into it, you might eventually recognize that these are other aspects of your own multidimensional nature. They're not external. You are a multidimensional being. You are a civilization of selves. Now, most people think, oh, yes, well, I remember, I think I remember I had an incarnation there and there, but this is just scratching the surface. Your nature is much more than you will ever suspect or even be able to understand at this point. But at least you have the spark, and it presents itself in a variety of forms so that you can relate and communicate. That is about all we can say at this particular point. So it is another version of you, if you like.
That's fine. Thank you very much.
And don't go near French chefs.
Huh?
The French are fond of frogs' legs.
Oh, yes. I was taken to a place like that once. Not nice.
No.
And thank you, Kris. Um, I have one more question, if you have time.
Indeed.
Um, it's in regards to Seth, actually. How would you explain your relationship to Seth?
We have always referred to Uncle Seth because at the particular layer of that experience, we're all related. Let us put it to you this way. Seth presented some revolutionary, mind and life-changing information, triggered a literal avalanche, a Niagara Falls of information that changed people's lives in so many different ways. It helped people see that, first of all, they might not be victims of events, conditions, and circumstances to the degree that they thought, and they also have power, the ability to change the course of their existence by themselves, not to have to wait for external agencies. Don't need a savior. You can save yourself, especially by understanding that there's nothing to save you from except your own challenges. Does that make sense so far?
Yes, thank you.
Now, on the other end of the spectrum, without any disrespect, there is Esther Hicks and Abraham. Very nice individuals. We consider, again, without any disrespect, that Abraham's material is set light. It helps people understand a little bit more about how they too are not necessarily trapped into their physical experience. They can have a certain amount of power to change the course or the direction of their lives. And it works very well for them. And in the middle comes humble Joseph and ourselves. Now, we don't consider ourselves light, we don't consider ourselves heavy, but more in between in such a way that we can look at both materials and sometimes spin it in a different way, give you a different understanding, such as the little parable of the Buddha that doesn't exist. Historically, the Buddha never spoke those words, but we did, because the Buddha is actually an archetype. Rubert tapped into a universal archetype and gave it voice, called it Seth. The material will continue to transform your world in a way you might not suspect. We have no particular illusions, either direction. We are content to work with Joseph in the manner he is, and interacting with yourself and others is quite satisfactory, actually. So we are akin to Uncle Seth. We have our own independent views. And as you mentioned earlier, there are some people who believe that any valid channeling must be a carbon copy of Uncle Seth. And that is actually wrong. Uncle Seth encouraged individuals to be themselves, not to be carbon copies. So we also urge others to be themselves. Understand the flow of your nature. And if you have to go jump in the river, by all means do so. In the river of your being. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, and depending on the temperature, the other river might work just as well if I watch out for those currents. Thank you very
Just
much.
stay out of swamps in DC. We thought you would like that one.
Yeah, after they're cleaned up, then I will consider it perhaps. But do you have any closing messages for us, Kris?
Hmm. Perhaps the understanding that there might be no other way to get firsthand experience about reality than by exploring and working with your own consciousness. It is fine to read about the experiences of others, but make use of it for yourself. Do not be a carbon copy. That is why, in some ways, over the last several months, we have spoken in our groups about oddments. These little stray thoughts are little more than just an intuitive blip on your awareness, because oddments lead to great openings of consciousness. Look at it this way. If you are by a pond and you toss a pebble in the pond, it will make ripples. And if you toss another pebble, it too will make ripples, but at some point the ripples will intersect. And those points of contact, we would refer to them as oddments, wherein new openings of perception and consciousness, entirely new venues of fields of perception become available. And one of the most interesting field of perception is the human being. You are oddments because you interpret reality. You interpret consciousness. You give it a particular understanding. Consciousness is never static. It always explores itself through you. And with that, we thank you for your consideration and return Joseph.
Thank you. That was very Sethian as well.
Indeed. How was the talk?
Absolutely fabulous. Lots of good stuff to share and nuggets to take with us. Thank you much. And you
Cool.
always come back right away. And like Jane, Rupert, you take your glasses off when Kris comes in. That's a
Yeah, he doesn't
nice,
really need them.
no, similarity, yeah.
And like I remember one time, this is a long time ago now, because it's very easy for me to come in and out of trance. And somebody said, "Oh, it can't be real. It's got to take more time than that." And like, what? I guess you want a big, long, drawn
Yeah,
out thing, but I don't like the drama. So it's just
yeah.
in and out.
Yep.
And I've been doing this for 42 years, so I know where the switch is.
Yep.
I don't have to fumble in the dark.
How true. Yeah, they wouldn't be happy with mine either because mine come in right away. I mean, we know they're coming in, and
Oh, yeah.
if we don't have any conscious objection to it or physical abnormality, which would
The,
prevent it.
the image that comes to my mind like that is, sometimes somebody wants a word in edgewise and they keep tapping their foot on the floor. Sometimes I get that from Kris. Come on already. Let me in.
Yeah, we have a lot of people who are channelers, like Heidi, and she will say, "Well, I can feel them here,"
Oh, yeah.
you know.
I can
So
feel it. In
it's
fact, other
almost
people sometimes feel it before I feel it
oh wow,
because they're so attuned. Some people have been working with Kris for 20 plus years,
yeah,
like
like
regularly, and they can feel him around before I'm even aware.
Chuck
They,
Crow.
Chuck, oh my God, so many of them. They know because they're attuned to the energy.
Yeah,
Hmm.
that's the only one I know out of your Sunday group. So
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Chuck can attest to that. He could feel it.
yeah, he's a marvelous channeler who has really expanded his reach and depth as well, since
Cool.
Desetu never leaves him.
Hmm.
Yeah, so cool. Thank you
Cool then. Thank you
very
very much,
much,
guys,
Serge.
and enjoy the rest of the day.
Will do. You too.
Bye.
Bye. Cool. And that wraps up this first session.